Hello and welcome to South Asia Today, a show that provides you the glimpses of South Asia. I'm your host Shivangi Mishra. Let's begin with the headlines first. Indian aviation enters global period with new airports. Nepalese differently able weightlifter fights for national recognition. And people in POK struggle to celebrate Ramadan amid skyrocketing prices. Let's begin the show. India is taking huge strides towards being a superpower that is not only economically thriving but also leading the charge to become self-reliant. The flourishing aviation industry in India needs special mention for its contribution to the country's economic might. Join us as we take you to witness India's contemporary feats in the aviation industry. A report.
In a historic deal, Tata Sons-led Air India placed a massive order of 470 Boeing and Airbus aircrafts last month to meet the sudden surge in the aviation demand in the country. The deal, worth around 100 billion USD, comprises the purchase of a wide range of aircrafts that will cater to the needs of passengers across the economic ladder and of travelers around the world. These deals with Boeing and Airspace were two of the biggest civil aviation deals the world has witnessed to date.
It is an opportunity not only for the American economy and for workers here in this country, but it's an opportunity for the Indian people as well. It's an opportunity to deepen what is already a profoundly intertwined relationship based on shared interests, based on shared values, based on our deep economic ties. And with the announcement between Boeing and Air India yesterday, those ties are all the deeper.
India is one of the most promising aviation markets in the world. After a brief pandemic-induced lull in her aviation activity in 2020 and 2021, India resurged strongly in 2022, with a 47% rise of air passenger traffic, totaling approximately 123 million people. Market and consumer data specialist Statista recorded that 22 million international passengers touched down at Indian airports in the financial year 2022. India has around 400 airports and airstrips, and of which 153 were operational by the end of 2022. The Indian aviation sector is projected to tread parallel to Indian economic growth in general, which is well placed to grow fastest amongst the major global economies in the next one decade.
आज भारत दुनिया का तीसरा सबसे बड़ा एविएशन मार्केट बन चुका है। उड़ान योजना ने जिस तरह देश के मध्यम वर्ग के सपनों को पूरा किया है, वो तो वाकई किसी यूनिवर्सिटी के लिए, एकेडमिक वर्ल्ड के लिए अध्ययन का विषय है।
The government's proactive measures, such as capping airfares, coupled with a rapid expansion in budget airlines fleets and a consistently growing middle-income group in India, have greatly contributed to the success of the Indian aviation sector. India is also home to one of the most affordable air markets in the world. These are some of the reasons that many experts around the world believe that Indian carriers can not only become a challenger to Middle Eastern carrier hegemony, but can also surpass them to become the most preferred air carriers globally. Indigo, the biggest domestic air carrier, which flies nearly 1,800 flights a day, is also set to expand its fleet size. As many as 500 aircrafts are on order and will join the Indigo fleet soon.
We are currently flying a little over 300 aircraft, and we have a whopping 500 more on order. Currently, we are flying 1,800 flights a day, and 10% of these flights are to international routes. Our current international flights are concentrated around the Indian subcontinent and some other countries around. The farthest we are flying to the west is to Turkey, Istanbul.
India has been working overtime to resume operations at airports in the country that were previously lying unserved or underserved. The Airports Authority of India has added dozens of airports to India's domestic air network in less than 1 decade, which has singularly propelled a significant growth in India's domestic air travelers. India is also on track to have some of the largest airports in the world in the immediate future. With the initial potential of catering up to 12 million people annually, and the expansion potential of 60 million to 120 million passengers over a period of the next 30 years, Noida International Airport in Delhi's satellite city is expected to be operational by 2024.
The number of airports are increasing, airlines are also going to increase, so our aviation industry, which is growing at such a good speed, is a beacon of hope to the entire world.
A remarkable aviation journey, which is poised to grow further, is an indication of India's general economic health. Per capita income levels have registered a significant growth, and a tremendous trajectory is predicted for the future as well. The entirety of brand India is booming, as are her individual sectors. Observers say India's aviation sector is one which will greatly promote her reputation around the world in years to come.
Moving on. 27-year-old Nepalese resident Deepak Khadka spends the majority of his time training others and getting ready for the next competitions in the gym. He is aiming to participate in another round of competition that is set to be organized in Dubai in the next 6 months. Have a look.
Nepal's Deepak Khadka spends most of his time in the gymnasium training others as well as preparing himself for the upcoming games. The 27-year-old right leg amputee earlier this year had secured 3rd position in the International Strength Lifting and Inclined Bench Press Championship under the 69+ kg physically challenged category. Organized by World Strength Lifting Federation, established in 2004, Khadka competed with athletes from 8 different nations in the 69+ kg physically challenged category. Though introduced in the international arena, the Himalayan nation is yet to recognize the category and start it.
मेडल जितिसकेपछि खुसी चाहिँ एकदमै खुसी हुन्छ अभियसली यो एउटा मेरो फर्स्ट इन्टरनेसनल कम्पिटिसन पनि हो जसमा मैले फर्स्ट इन्टरनेसनल कम्पिटिसनमा म 3rd पोजिसन पनि भएको थिएँ अब फर्स्टमै 3rd पोजिसन भएपछि एकदमै अब एक्सप्रेसन नै गर्न मिल्दैन हैन अब लाइक दिस अब एकदम खुसी पनि भएको थियो घर परिवारहरुले नै एकदम सपोर्ट गर्नुभएको थियो साथीभाइहरु सबैले कङ्ग्रेचुलेसन सबले सपोर्ट चाहिँ एकदम भएको थियो मलाई एकदम अब खुसी लागिरहेको थियो मनैबाट 3rd पोजिसन हुँदाखेरि
15 years back, Deepak met with an accident while he was in his mid-teens and in his final year of primary level studies and lost his right leg. After losing a year of academic studies, Deepak struggled and continued his studies and completed his intermediate level of academics. The starting days of the recovery and reconciliation were not easy for him, but then came his friends and supporters, who in many ways groomed and supported him to bring a change in his life.
फर्स्ट टाइममा चाहिँ अलिक डिफिकल्टी धेरै भएको थियो मलाई हैन साथीभाइहरुले पनि अब धेरै अब केही हुँदैन नर्मल हो यो त यस्तो भएको हुन्छ भनेर मलाई हौसलाहरु पनि दिनुभयो रिसेन्टली मेरो एकदम मिल्ने साथी चाहिँ अब सन्दीप केसी हैन हामी चाहिँ बच्चैदेखि सँगै बसेको हो सँगै हुर्केको र म स्कुल पनि सँगै पढेको उले चाहिँ मलाई एकदम हेल्पफुल भयो उले चाहिँ मेरो यो यस्तो भएर पनि मलाई चाहिँ अलि मोरल डाउन जस्तो भएको थियो अब म यस्तो मान्छे मलाई समाजले के भन्ला कस्तो भन्ला के गर्ला बट उले चाहिँ एकदम सपोर्टिभ गर्यो के कस्तो अब यस्तो मान्छेहरु धेरै हुन्छ तस्तो मान्छेलाई त धेरैले हेल्प गर्छ तर मोटिभेसन हो अरूको लागि यताउता हुनेहरुले मलाई धेरै हेल्प गर्यो अब धेरै टर्नओभर चेन्ज पनि आयो अब लाइफस्टाइल पनि चेन्जै भयो जस्तो यो एक्सिडेन्ट भएपछि
Deepak, since his early childhood, wanted to join the Nepali army as his father worked in the force. He had dreamt of following in the footsteps of his father, but the accident brought a turn in his life. But the end of one dream sprouted another in his mind to join the gym, where his friend Sandeep stepped in and started giving him training. He watched a lot of motivational videos and speeches and read articles about how physically challenged people are moving ahead in their lives. It's been 15 years since Deepak's life changed, out of which half of it he has spent in gymnasium. Now he is deeply in love with the Colosseum. Apart from preparing himself physically as well as mentally, he is making some earnings while performing as a trainer. On an average, he has been earning about 30,000 Nepali rupees on a monthly basis, which mainly supports his dietary plans. Now he is aiming to participate in another round of competition that is set to be organized in Dubai in the next 6 months. He is preparing to win the top position in his category. The young sports enthusiast who chose the sports of bodybuilding and weightlifting as a career wants the government and sports bodies to recognize the category for physically challenged ones as well.
Now we take a look at some happenings in Asia in a segment called Asia Watch.
Hundreds of devotees and Buddhist monks thronged India's northern hill town of Dharamshala to pray for a long life of their spiritual leader, the Dalai Lama. Tibetan women dressed in traditional attire and danced outside the Suglakhang temple, which is the main Tibetan temple in Dharamshala. The Nobel Peace Laureate is regarded as one of the most influential people in the world, with a following extending well beyond Buddhism. Scores of protesters gathered outside Israeli mission in the Turkish cities of Ankara and Istanbul, chanting slogans against an Israeli police raid at Jerusalem's Al-Aqsa Mosque. Waving Turkish and Palestinian flags, protesters called for an immediate end to the violence, which erupted again at Al-Aqsa compound hours after the initial raid on Wednesday morning. Hundreds of worshippers broke their Ramadan fast to protest outside Istanbul's Fateh Mosque after President Tayyip Erdogan condemned the raid, calling the mosque compound a red line for Turkey. The earlier incident resulted in the arrest and removal of more than 350 people by Israeli police, and the later clashes broke out on Wednesday evening despite a US appeal to ease tensions. The confrontations during the Muslim holy month of Ramadan and on the eve of the Jewish Passover holiday triggered a cross-border exchange of fire in Gaza and stoked fears for further violence. Hundreds of Iraqi Christians marched through the streets of the northern Iraqi town of Hamdaniya to mark Palm Sunday. Chanting, waving banners, and wearing traditional clothes, people rejoiced the festive atmosphere. Iraq's Christian population of 1.5 million some 20 years ago stands at about 3 lakh today. Hamdaniya, one of Iraq's most important Christian towns, saw a rare revival over the last years. Many Iraqi Christians who over the last years had been unable to visit due to political violence attended the celebrations. Early morning mass was held in the restored Grand Immaculate Church, Iraq's largest, that had been desecrated by Islamic State militants and ravaged by fire. Palm Sunday, which marks the beginning of the week leading to Easter, commemorates the day the Gospels say Jesus rode into Jerusalem and was hailed by the people, only to be crucified 5 days later. Tea pouring, apron tying, even slipper fitting, all training 24-year-old Indonesian Siti Maesaro hopes will land her a job and set up a flourishing career in Japan. She and her 38 classmates dream of a life there. How to look after their future clients, older people in need of caregivers in the most advanced aging society. Part of that is learning the intricacies of Japanese language. The school is a part of a chain across Southeast Asia called Onodera User Run that trains up vocational workers for jobs in Japan, where people over 65 account for more than a quarter of the population. With official estimates saying the birth rate plunged to a record low last year and a rapidly shrinking workforce, the head of the school, Camila Manchor, says the initiative could help both countries. The Japanese embassy in Indonesia, there were more than 3 lakh skilled labor vacancies in Japan and less than half of them were filled. In February, a group of Tokyo-based think tanks said Japan needs 4 times the foreign workers it has now by 2040, or risk failing to hit the growth the government has set for the economy.
Pakistan-occupied Kashmir has been grappling with inflation for a long time. The cost of almost all items has touched a new high. People are struggling to fulfill their basic needs with the income they earn through their menial jobs. The people complain that they cannot celebrate their festivities in peace due to the economic crisis manufactured by Pakistan's faulty policies. Have a look.
The month of Ramadan means celebration and festivities to Muslims across the world. However, for the people in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, it turned out to be an unpleasant affair as they continue to face the heat of rising inflation and are unable to afford basic commodities. The people in the illegally occupied territory continue to bear the brunt of hyperinflation. Even the basic commodities such as food grains are out of reach for the common man.
आपको पता है कि बहुत ही ज़्यादा महंगाई हो चुकी है। फ्रूट जो है वो ख़रीदने की पोजीशन में नहीं है, आम अनाज भी ख़रीदने की पोजीशन में गरीब आदमी नहीं है, पेट्रोल महंगा है, गैस महंगी है, हर चीज़ महंगी है। तो मैं अपने जो ताजरान हैं, बिलखसूस जो होल सेलर डीलर्स हैं, उनसे गुजारिश करना चाह रहा हूँ कि जो आप होल सेल पे जो है दुकानदारान को इश्याए खुर्द व नोश फ़रोख्त करते हैं, आप मेहरबानी करके रिटेल में भी परचून में भी अपने जो है आवाम को उसी रेट पे दें।
The acute economic crisis in Pakistan is affecting the illegally occupied territories of POK and Gilgit-Baltistan also. As provinces across Pakistan face food shortage, its impact is even severe on these two regions. A vast majority of people here are unable to afford their basic requirements like food and fuel. Residents accuse the stooge administration in the illegally occupied region for the current state of affairs. People across the region are finding it hard to even celebrate their most significant religious festival of the season.
पूरी दुनिया में जब गैर मुस्लिम भी होते हैं तो वो पैकेज देते हैं रमज़ान मुबारक में, तो हम मुसलमान जो है वो महंगाई करते हैं, तो ये बड़ी जुल्म और ज़्यादती की बात है।
However, local administration in the illegally occupied region often expresses fictitious solidarity and sympathy for the Muslim residents, but they failed to notice the simmering angst against them that could anytime snowball into a full-fledged revolt.
Spring with its arrival has brought all kinds of excitement in Nagaland's Kohima as celebrations over much-awaited Elong festival began in the region. Witnessing joyful aura, the capital city saw an enthusiastic spring welcome with the people of Konyak tribe celebrating the festival with great zeal and colour. Konyak people in Kohima turned the spirit around as they draped their traditional attires and geared up for celebrations.
Decked up in traditional tribal attires, people of the Konyak tribe sang and danced to the beat of drums as they gathered to celebrate Elong, the premier festival of the community. This year, the festival was celebrated at the Naga Heritage Village in Kisama district. The festival was attended by Nagaland's Minister for Tourism and Higher Education, Temjen Inma Elong, who was also the chief guest at the event.
A very happy Owling festival to all the Konyak brothers and sisters. This is truly one of the best celebrated festivals among the tribes of Nagaland, and the Konyaks have been very fervent to celebrate owling all over the state. And today we are also happy to know that in Kohima we are celebrating the owling festival in Kohima, where the confluence of not only the Angamis but also the confluence of all the tribes of Nagaland are here. And today's owling here, the Konyak Union Kohima has done a tremendous job, and it's a wonderful thing, and the food was great. So it's called the Mopong Hong Kong Union's food, no? So it was really wonderful.
The Elong festival celebrates the onset of spring, and locals seek divine blessings for good health and a bountiful harvest. Celebrated for almost a week, a number of different rituals take place during the course of the festival. A melodious singing performance was also organized, which was thoroughly enjoyed by the audiences. The celebrations are held in the first week of April, which usually coincides with the beginning of the Konyak New Year.
This owling festival, it's welcoming the spring season, and especially we celebrate this owling festival seeking blessing for our good health and a bountiful harvest. And it is actually a pre-harvest festival.
The first 3 days of the Elong festival are spent preparing for the festival by weaving traditional cloths, collecting the animals that will be sacrificed, and preparing food and rice beer for the festival. The most significant day of the Elong is the fourth day, known as Lingunya, when all Konyak tribe members dress up in their finest colourful traditional tribal clothing and jewellery. The festival's final 2 days are referred to as Linganya and Lingshanya. This time will be spent with family, cleaning the village as a whole, as well as individual homes.
The identity of the people depends on the culture, the custom and the tradition. That is why we cannot ignore the identity. So by celebrating this owling festival, it helps us to come together, to know each other, and even the youngsters, they come to know what our tradition is. It gives a good impact by celebrating this owling festival for the younger generation.
Of Nagaland's 17 officially recognized tribes, the Konyak people are the most numerous and well known due to their historical practice of headhunting. The Elong festival not only celebrates the arrival of spring season, but is also a beautiful show of the Konyak community's culture and lifestyle.
It's time for me to wrap up today's episode. We'll be back next week at the same time. This is Shivangi Mishra signing off on the behalf of the entire production team of South Asia Today. Goodbye and take care.